Hi, I'm Steve Parsonage of XI Consulting and welcome to clip 3 in the series that shows you how to create your own winning CV, and which forms part of a larger series of video advice clips I put together to assist you navigate your way through the sometimes turbulent and seemingly mine-infested waters of the selection process. That series is entitled The Process of Unnatural Selection, and this clip 3 will show you how to create winning content for your CV. In the Oscar-nominated clip 2, I showed you how to create the structure that your CV will need. And in this, clip 3, I'll show you what content needs to go under each of the headings in that structure. Content. Top of page 1, personal details, contact information. If you can remember it, your name, a mobile telephone number and a personal email address. But get it at the top of page 1 for the very simple reason that when your CV has done its job and got you onto that very small pile of CVs of people who are going to be invited in for interview, you want to make your contact information readily available so you are close to or at the front of the queue when it comes to giving out interview alternatives. If you bury that information back in the body copy of your CV, it might put you at the back of that queue and at a disadvantage. Don't make that mistake. I have, down the years, read many CVs where people have forgotten to include their name, sometimes their contact details, and sometimes, almost unbelievably, both. That renders a document into which they may have poured hours of loving time completely and utterly useless. I can only assume that they'd intended to include that information later on in the CV and then forgot. Again, crucial error, don't make it. Location. Location can be included at this stage, but not always. If your location is highly appropriate, then shout about it, include it and be specific with town and county. If it's less appropriate, say more than an hour's commute, then include it but be less specific, perhaps putting only the county. If it's highly inappropriate because for some reason you still wish to apply, then don't include it but be prepared at interview to articulate clearly your plan for making this job work from your current location. If your location is highly inappropriate but you plan to relocate at your own expense, then do not include your current location and the fact that you're prepared to relocate at your expense here, because employers quite often will still exclude you. They are looking for a simple, uncomplicated selection process. And relocation, even when it doesn't cost them anything, is hardly ever simple or uncomplicated. Next, a section I entitled Why You? This is the part where you are going to explain to the reader why they're going to be interested in your CV and why they should read on. And you do this by highlighting those elements of your skills and experience which qualify you to do this job. I've read many CVs down the years where people continually use a generic description of themselves at this point, which, whilst accurate, doesn't explain why they're particularly appropriate for this role. At best, this is a wasted sales opportunity. At worst, it could get them excluded from the selection process even before their CV's been read. Criminal. So, keep it simple and to the point. For example, experienced enterprise software sales executive with a strong track record of new business wins in both the corporate and SME markets. As I said, simple, straightforward, to the point, compelling the reader to continue into your CV. Okay, a couple of things to try and avoid doing in the Why You section. Firstly, try not to start with a proud assertion of the number of years of relevant experience that you have if that number exceeds 15. At the risk of being controversial, and although quite rightly, age being used as a selection criteria is illegal in the UK and many other countries, you need to ask yourself, will that description of you be read positively? Could it be read negatively? Or are you not sure? If the answer to that might be, it could be read negatively, or you're not sure, then don't use it. It's a risk that you don't have to take, so don't take it. Aside from which, more than 10 or 15 years experience in most professions and occupations is sufficient for almost any role that you're going to apply for. also try and avoid, as has become fashionable, leading in with a string of soft skills or competencies that you believe that you possess, such as strong empathetic leader, good communicator, enthusiastic team member, etc., etc. Now, whilst there's nothing wrong with any of these capabilities, and you indeed may possess them, they remain a group of unsubstantiated claims made by somebody that the reader hasn't met, and until they see verification that you have these capabilities in the context of the CV, they'll have little impact. And after somebody's read about the 15th version of the same sort of claim, they start to straight line, or at worst, avoid this part of the CV altogether. You're better off sticking to something that is relevant for the role, that is short, has impact, and will compel the reader to continue. After all, who's actually going to admit that they're a lone wolf with severe psychological disorder, socially inept, and deaf to the needs of others? Very few people, I suspect, and certainly not you. Next, another section which should be pretty straightforward: educational qualifications. If yours are impressive and or relevant, then include them. If they're not, then exclude this section entirely. And please don't try and impress with your honours degree from the University of Life. No one is. Impressed, I mean. And all you're doing is drawing the reader's attention to the fact that you probably don't have any academic qualifications of note. This doesn't make you a bad person, nor does it mean that you can't do a very good job for somebody. But if your level of academic attainment isn't your strongest feature, then don't draw attention to the fact. Finally, if a specific academic qualification is a mandatory requirement for this role and you don't have it, then don't apply. Find another role to apply for. But bear in mind that employers quite often state a qualification as a would like rather than must have. And if you're not sure if it's mandatory or not, then my advice would always be apply and find out. Next up, professional qualifications. These can be treated in exactly the same way as educational qualifications, but bear in mind that if you have a professional qualification that this job requires, whether it's 5 years Java programming, ACCA qualified, 5 years upstream oil experience, Spanish fluency, it doesn't matter what it is. If you've got it, it qualifies you in, so shout it out. Get it in early and prominently. So that's the end of clip 3, and your CV is really starting to take shape now. In clip 4, we'll go into your career history and some detail into who you've been with, in what roles, and what achievements that you can claim. The beating heart of your CV. However, if, as I've said earlier, you find the whole concept of creating your own winning CV just too onerous or time consuming to even contemplate, then just drop me an email and I'll do whatever I can to assist you. I'll see you in clip 4.